Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 2. Before I continue, I just wanted to show you how this is all about DNA. Okay, first of all, if you look at the word seed in the Hebrew, you see that it's Strong's number 2233. And I've talked about before how there's two sets of 23 chromosomes in a human body. So you have 23 and 23 because it's like the number 23 amplified, but you also have 23 in the middle and then 23 making the two numbers on the ends. So you have the 23 for a total of 46, and it says it's a seed, sowing, offspring, semen, virile. So this is all ultimately talking about DNA. Okay, and I believe it's also represented by the number 11. I've talked about that before because I believe that represents the two chromosomes that are connected together at the centromere that compose DNA. It's composed of two sets of chromosomes. There's actually 23 sets of two chromosomes for a total of 46. So I believe it's also represented by the number 11 because that's what two DNA strands look like. But as you can see here, it's also the very first use of the word seed comes up in verse 11. So I believe that it's very often in verse 11 or chapter 11 where it's talking about DNA. Okay, so if you go to Daniel 11, you'll see that this is actually a parallel to Ezekiel 17. It's basically talking about the same thing, and something that I had noticed a long time ago, and I've mentioned this before, but if you go to verse 31 where it's talking about the abomination of desolation, it says, "And arms shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that makes desolate." And I've mentioned before that this seems to represent what was represented in Luke 21:21 because it's talking about arms, it's talking about military, and it's talking about surrounding Israel. But if you look at this in the Greek, you see that it uses the word sperm, and this is in the plural, and it says, "And sperm out of him will resurrect or be raised up." And this word right here means, okay, I had to look up that word, it means to profane or desecrate the holy of strength, and this word means to change, but I'll go ahead and show it to you. Okay, I'm actually getting two different meanings for this. If you look at this definition over here, it says it means moribund, which I actually had to look that up just to be sure of what that means, but it means in a dying state, near death. But then I also pulled it up on Google Translate because I remembered it meaning to change when I had looked this up a long time ago, years ago when I first noticed this, but as you can see it means transformation. Okay, and then it goes on to say the perpetual and will give. This word means to give, and then this word means an abomination. This word right here means an abomination. And then this word means unseen or invisible. Okay, so it's saying, "And sperm out of him will be raised up or resurrected, and will profane the holy of strength, and transform the perpetual, and will give an abomination that is unseen." Okay, so I believe this is talking about the abomination of desolation in terms of the mark of the beast. I believe it's going to involve sperm and DNA, and over here in the Hebrew, it's talking about when Israel is surrounded, when arms, of the Antichrist, the military arms, will stand on his part and pollute the sanctuary of strength, which would be the Temple Mount, which would be Jerusalem, and it's going to be compassed with armies, as it says in Luke 21:21. So I believe they both come at the same time, and the Hebrew reflects the part where the Antichrist surrounds Israel, and then in the Greek it reflects the part that has to do with the abomination of desolation, just as you have with Mark and Matthew, where it talks about the abomination of desolation, but then in Luke 21:21 it talks about Judea or Israel being compassed with armies, and I'll go ahead and show you that again. It says in verse 20, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. So they both happen at the same time. Okay, so this entire chapter is about DNA. I believe that's why it's in chapter 11. And another thing that I came to understand some time ago is that over here where it's talking about the king's daughter, I believe this is talking about Mystery Babylon. It says, and in the end of the years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come unto the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. I believe this is talking about Mystery Babylon, but what's interesting is the word join over here, which is in the Greek. I'll show you the Hebrew first, but in the Greek it's the same word that's used in Daniel 2, where it talks about the iron being mixed with the miry clay. But as you can see, it's saying to be joined, to be in league. If you go further down, it says to bind together. So I believe this is talking about the DNA and the mark of the beast. But we're told in Daniel 2 that it will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with clay. But if you look at the word in the Greek, this is a word that means to mix together. The root of this word means to mix. Okay, and you can see that here in Daniel 2:41. It says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with the miry clay, they shall mingle themselves together, or mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And so if you look at the word for mingle in the Greek, you see that it's got the same root of the other word. It means to mix together. And you can see it again over here. This is the same as the form that was in Daniel 11, and you can see that root form of the word mix right there. Okay, so over here where it says, and in the end of years they shall join themselves together, this is talking about mingling together, and I believe the king's daughter over here is referring to Mystery Babylon. And then it says, but out of a branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them and prevail. It's interesting, that's coming up in Daniel 11:7, so you have 1:17. And I've talked about this word branch before. It's the word netzer in the Hebrew, and if you look at the uses of this word, it only comes up 4 times, and 2 times it's referring to Jesus, and the other 2 times it's referring to the Antichrist. In Isaiah 11:1 it says, and there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. This is obviously referring to Jesus in Isaiah 11, and so again this is referring to DNA because it's in chapter 11. And then in Isaiah 14 this is where Satan is cast out of the grave like an abominable branch. So this is referring to the Antichrist when he comes out of the pit after receiving the head wound, and everyone wonders after the beast. And then in Isaiah 60:21 it says, thy people also shall be righteous, they shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting and the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. And of course this is talking about Jesus in Isaiah 60 verse 21, and then in Daniel 11:7 it's talking about the Antichrist. So one is about Jesus, the other one's about the Antichrist, the other one's about Jesus, and the other one is about the Antichrist. Okay, now when you get to verse 22 and 23, again, this is talking about DNA, and I had noticed this years ago before I realized this had anything to do with DNA, but what I understood about verse 22 is that this is talking about the birth, it's actually talking about the rapture. Because if you look at the word broken, it actually means to bring to the birth. It's the word in the Hebrew that's the word shabar, but as you can see it means to break in pieces, but it can also mean to break out or bring to the birth, and it's the same word that's used in Isaiah 66, where it says, before she travailed she brought forth, before her pain came she was delivered of a man-child. Who hath heard such a thing? Who hath seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? For as soon as Zion travailed, she brought forth her children. Shall I bring to the birth, and not cause to bring forth, saith the Lord? Shall I cause to bring forth, and shut the womb, saith thy God? And if you look at the word birth in the Hebrew in verse 9, it's the word shabar. And so that's the same word that's used in Daniel 11:22, and it says also the Prince of the Covenant, because when Jesus comes back, the Bible refers to that as a birth as well. And so I understood this as referring to the true Prince of the Covenant that it talks about in Daniel 9:27, as well as the false prince, because I believe it's talking about the false prince of the covenant on a secondary level in Daniel 9:27, but primarily it's talking about the true prince of the covenant, which would be Jesus, and I believe they're both born at the same time. And in terms of the second coming, when Jesus comes back, that's referred to as a birth. And then the appearance of the Antichrist, I believe they both happen at the same time. And then when you go to verse 23, it says, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. And of course this is talking about the Antichrist over here. And the league that it's talking about is the mingling together, because again it uses this word that means to mix together in the Greek. And if you look at the word league in the Hebrew, it also means to be joined together. And where it says a small people in the Hebrew, that actually means few. And I'll just show you that. You can see that it means littleness, few. And then in the Greek, it's the word, I'll show it to you, it's this word right here, which is oligo, and it's where you get the word oligarchy from. And that also means few. So the few people would be the 10 kings that rule with the Antichrist for 1 hour, is what I believe this is talking about. But I'm almost out of time, so I'll have to continue in the next video. But as you can see, it goes on to talk about the abomination of desolation after that in verse 31, and the covenant. And this is exactly what's talked about in Ezekiel 17 as well. And so I'll get to that in the next video. Thanks for watching, and God bless you.